have decided to do something a little bit on the lighter side since we are coming into the summer season. Today I'm going to do a very light and sort of on the sweeter side summer salad. We're going to do a really nice herb vinaigrette with some lemon and some rice wine vinegar. And then to top it all off, we're going to finish that salad with some really nice spiced nuts, as well as some seared scallops. So right away, we're going to get into this, and we're going to get this happening. So we're going to start by the first little bit of prep that we're going to do for the vinaigrette. So what we've decided to do today is we are going to do a parsley, thyme, with some lemon, some rice wine vinegar, avocado oil, and salt and pepper for our dressing. So this is a really basic dressing. Very, very simple, and we're all going to do the entire thing in the mason jar, so all we're going to do is shake it up, and it's going to be ready to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by picking our thyme. Now I've got some really nice thick stem flowering thyme right here, which just means it's a little later on the stalk, but really don't be afraid of the flowers. The flowers are actually really quite delicious on the thyme. So we're just going to pull this off the stem and get into a nice little pile. And we're just going to get this all a really good chop, and we're going to get it into that jar. Now, like I said, this salad itself is going to be a little on the sweeter side. We're going to have a lot of fresh berries in there. So the reason that we decided to go with a nice herb vinaigrette, this is going to have a lot of vinegar behind it, a lot of acidity, which is really just going to crank up the flavor, and it's going to cut through some of that sweetness. It's also the reason why we decided to go with a spicier kind of candied nut. So we got our thyme here, and now we're going to get into the parsley. Now with this parsley, all of these stems on the top here, leave them on. Parsley stems are absolutely delicious, and I definitely recommend leaving some of those on there. So we're going to save those other ones for a little bit of stock. So I'm just going to take my thyme, because it's a little bit smaller, put it on top of my parsley. We're just going to kind of bunch all this up. Just kind of get it all nice and rolled in there. Then just take your knife, and you're just going to start chopping all the way through. Now the initial chop is going to be a little on the rougher side, and then we're going to go back there and we're going to fine chop these herbs really quite nice and small, so we can get them really into the vinaigrette. So now we're just going to get into this. We're going to start chopping these away. Making lots of noise because it's all rumbly under here. So we're really going after these herbs. Oh, we're knocking stuff over. It's alright because it's live. So, get these herbs together. And then we're going to give them one more really nice chop again, just to break down everything really nice and small. Alright, so now that we got our herbs all chopped up, we're actually going to toss these right into the bottom of the jar, right away here. So we're just going to get those right into the jar, because we're going to start building some acidity on top of that, which is really, really going to help everything blend all the flavors together really nicely. I'm just going to wipe off my board here really quick, get some of this extra herbs off there. All right. So, the next little bit, I have a Meyer lemon. Now, if you can't find Meyer lemons, a regular lemon will do, but a Meyer lemon is a lot juicier. It does tend to have a little less acidity, which for this recipe is going to work really well. So again, we're just going to split that, and we're going to get rid of some of those big seeds, and we are just going to squeeze some of that juice into the bottom of our jar. Now, really, what we're going to do, it's alright if that seed gets in there, we're going to fish them out afterwards anyway. So really, you want about a tablespoon of lemon juice out of that lemon out of there. So there we go there. Grab that seed out of the bottom. Alright, so now that we have our lemon juice in there, now we're going to add our vinegar. So for a lot of vinaigrette recipes, you're basically going to be going 1-to-1 vinegar to oil. So we're going to take our vinegar here, and so I'm using rice wine vinegar because it's a lot lighter in acidity and flavor. What vinegar you use, if you want to use a nice white wine vinegar as well, I would also recommend that. But for me, rice wine vinegar is where it's at because it's a little lighter in flavor. So we are going to add about a 1/4 cup of rice wine vinegar. And for right now, we're going to let that sit. We're going to let those herbs open up inside that acidity and let the vinegar and the lemon juice really kind of get the herbs activated. Now, while that's working, we're going to start working on our candied nuts. So for this version of the candied nuts, I've chosen cashews. Really, you can do anything as far as the nuts go. Whatever your personal favorite is, by all means. We're going to use an egg white beaten to basically a meringue texture to coat these nuts and to really to transfer all the flavor to them. So we're gonna season the egg white quite heavily. We're gonna coat the nuts in there, and then we're gonna bake them. The nice thing about this is it's 300 degrees for 4 minutes, and that's it. You're going to seal all that egg white. It's going to become nice and crispy, and once they cool down, they're crunchy and they are so delicious. So we're going to take our egg. Just going to give it a quick crack. And we're just going to pull that egg white out of there. So obviously try and keep a really nice break across the middle. So you have something nice to move your egg around. So now that we have our egg white, I'm just going to throw this right into my stand mixer here. And we're going to turn this on, and we're going to get this thing rolling at full speed until everything starts to really, really whisk up. Now, because there is only one in there, it will take a little while because you're going to have to wait till it starts to aerate a little bit before it really starts to expand. Once this expands, and once you get really nice and frothy, we're going to add about a teaspoon. We're using Old Bay. I really like Old Bay seasoning. It's typically a seafood seasoning. A lot of times you'll find it in as the main flavor for crab cakes. I feel it has a little bit of a Cajun, and it has a really nice flavor profile to it. So that's going to be our flavor once we get this all whipped up here. Now, unfortunately, it looks like this is going to take a little while there, so we're going to expedite this process just by adding another egg white. My mixer is a little too big for that, so we're just going to make this a little easier. We're just going to drop another egg white right in there. And now that whisk is going to catch that, you should start frothing a lot quicker. There we go. Now we're working. We're just acting kind of weird. Okay, never mind. We're good. All right. So we're going to let that whisk up. So I've already got my pan ready to go. Now I'm using a Silpat, which is basically a reinforced silicone pad that is definitely worth the investment if you do a lot of baking, or even if you just do a lot of cooking in your oven. It takes the place of parchment in almost every circumstance. Phenomenal for that. And they're pretty inexpensive these days, so I definitely recommend picking them up. And again, they're dishwasher safe, so you can wash it down, wipe it down, and just reuse it again. So our egg whites are starting to froth up really nicely now. So at this point in time, I'm going to take my spice. I'm going to take, again, about a teaspoon of Old Bay. Turn that off for a moment. Wait till that stops. And we're just going to pop that right in there. And we're going to give that a spin again. Once this becomes incorporated, like this takes about 12 seconds to do. And we'll turn that off. We can now open up our mixer. Get the extra egg white off the end of your beater. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our nuts. We're going to put them right in. Grab yourself a spatula. And all you're going to do is you're just going to work those around. Now, obviously, that's a lot more egg white than I actually need. I just needed it to froth up a little bit. So we're going to allow that a little bit of that to come out. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take these, we're going to put them right on our baking tray here. Just like so. Flatten them out just enough. So we got good surface area. Oh, it smells really good with that Old Bay spice on there. And I'll just take a little bit of that extra froth and we'll put it right on top. And now that is going to go right into the oven, 300 degrees for 4 minutes. So there we go. We're going to start there. We're going to see how it looks in 4 minutes. All right. Now that we have that going, it's time to get back to the dressing. So now that our herbs have sat in the vinegar, they've started to open up. You can really kind of get the aroma. The parsley and the thyme are really starting to bloom nicely. So now we're going to add a little bit of salt and pepper, oil, and we're going to finish off this dressing. For salt and pepper, I'm going to go slightly heavier on than salt. So I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 turns of pepper. It's about a little under a tablespoon. Now we're going to add some kosher salt. And we're going to throw in just a teaspoon of salt. And now the oil. I've chosen to go with avocado oil today. I really enjoy the color and I do really like the texture of it. It's very silky, it's a very robust oil, but it is also flavor neutral. So now we are just going to add the extra 50% of our liquid in oil. So again, you're looking at about a little under probably about a little under a half a cup of each. At this point in time, all you're going to do is you're going to take your mason lid jar, close it, and give it an extra half turn. Make sure that sucker is sealed. And you're going to shake it. And you're going to give it another shake. And because of that avocado oil, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get this unbelievably good looking, kind of golden, a little bit of herbaceous dressing. The nice thing about this is because of the avocado oil, this can stay in the fridge. And this will stay in the fridge for 2 weeks. Best thing about making your own dressings, these last a lot longer than you realize. The only thing you got to do is you can see already, because this is a temporary emulsification, you are getting your separation of your oil and vinegar. So right before we dress your salad, you're just going to have to give this a very vigorous shake, and you're going to get everything reincorporated. So for now, we're going to let that sit right there and chill. All right, now it's time for one of my favorite things in the world. We're going to get these scallops. Now, if you're not familiar with scallops, they are one of the most luxurious shellfish, in my personal opinion. These amazing white orbs of fleshy deliciousness, unfortunately, are a little expensive, but unbelievably worth it when you have the extra money to invest. Now, the one thing a lot of people do with scallops is they will overcook them. Scallops take a lot of finesse to cook. They overcook incredibly quickly. And unfortunately, when they do overcook, they are unbelievably terrible. So what I've done here is, these were previously frozen, so I've just thawed them out. Now, you will notice that in the bottom of the bowl, if you did have frozen scallops, you are going to see some milky water in the bottom of that. Don't worry about that. All that is just a little bit of the protein discharge from inside the scallop with the frozen water. The only thing you really have to worry about is on the side of the scallop is this little guy right here. Now this muscle, and you can see the difference in the color, and the really nice soft white flesh, and it's a little bit darker, and it has a little bit of almost a scaly texture. Now that is the abductor muscle. So that little guy is the muscle that holds onto the shell. So all we're going to do is we're going to take that off, and then we're going to put our scallops on some paper towel, because one of the keys to cooking scallops is having nice, dry scallops. No surface moisture, so we can get a really hard seal right off the bat. So we're just going to continue going through here. We're going to pull off all of our abductor muscles. And I see that it's time to check our nuts. So let's take a look inside here and see how these guys look. Now we're going to All right, so these guys haven't quite set yet. So we're still a little on the liquidy side. So we're gonna give those another 4 minutes. Then we're gonna turn it up to 350. Okay, now while those are continuing, we're gonna finish pulling these abductor muscles off these scallops and make sure that we are ready to go to cook these. The last thing you want, no, that's not true. The abductor muscle is not a terrible thing to leave on. It is chewy, it is an unpleasant texture, but it's not gonna ruin the entire dish by any means. Obviously you want to get them out of there because it is, you're spending a lot of money on these scallops and you want them to be the best possible version of them. So you want to make sure they're clean and they're properly taken care of. So now that we have these on our paper towel, we are just going to give them a really good squeeze out here. We're going to dry them off as much as we can before we start the cooking process. All right. Now, one thing I do like to do with these is right before I cook them, I will season them. Don't do it too ahead of time. The salt will start to firm up the flesh and it will give it a different texture. Luckily for us, scallops do not take a terrible amount of time to cook. It just takes a little bit of practice to learn how to cook them. So we're going to get our pan up to a little bit over a medium-high heat. And we're going to get a little bit of oil in there just so we can get them just that initial sear on the first side. So again, I'm going to use that same avocado oil. So I really like the high smoking point, so it takes heat very well. So we're going to get a decent amount of heat on there. And bring over our spatula and flip these guys. Now we're getting really close. So we're going to get just a little bit of salt and pepper on these. Now, I mean a very small amount of salt and pepper. For all 10 of these scallops on each side, I'm probably using maybe a teaspoon of salt and probably about a teaspoon of pepper. Because of how we're going to finish these, now we can just go like this, give those a quick flip, and we can season the other side. Now, because of the way we are going to finish these, there's going to be an incredible amount of extra flavor infused into these scallops. Scallops already are very flavorful. They are sweet, and they have a beautiful ocean flavor. But we're going to enhance that a little bit by adding a little bit of our best friend, Mr. Butter. So we're going to use a little bit of butter and just the smallest amount of sage to finish off these scallops. Alright, so these guys, we're going to get that oil coated around this pan really nicely. All the way around, get that heat up just a touch more. Because initially, when we first put these down into the pan, we want them to almost seal to the pan. We want a really nice, hard, almost crusty sear. Because when we flip them, we're going to put some butter, that sage in there, and then we're going to baste them. And we're just going to coat these guys over and over and over with beautiful brown butter and just enrich them over and over and over again. So first, while that's heating up, once again, we're going to take a look at these nuts. Up here. Yes. So now we can see that we're starting to get a nice crust. Now, unfortunately, I had a little too much egg in there, but that's okay. Because we're just going to pop those back into the oven now that I've moved them around a little bit for another 2 minutes. That's just going to dry off the last a little bit. I'm just going to dry those off. Now, good heat coming off our pan. Oil all around. Now you're going to take your scallops. We're just going to place them in very gently. You're going to hear them hit that pan with that beautiful sear. We're just going to let those guys sit in that nice hot oil. It's beautifully golden brown. Before we add some butter and some sage into there and really set this off. So you may be asking or wondering why I'm only using 2/3 of the pan. And the main reason for that is because of how we're going to end up cooking these with the basting method. Because I want to have a good amount of room down here, because we're going to basically have our butter and we're going to baste. So right now, we're just going to let those scallops just sear, just cook. Don't touch them, barely look at them. Unfortunately, with scallops, when you look at them, they get scared and they might do something that you don't want them to do. So, we're going to take a look at these nuts. One last outing. Aha, beautiful. So, now we can take a look at these beautiful candied nuts. And all that egg has baked all that flavor right into those. So all we're going to do is knock off some of that little extra egg white that we had. We're going to let these cool down and we're going to put those right on top of our salad when we're ready to build it. So those can just go to the side and cool down. The beautiful thing about those is that you can do them well in advance, and they'll keep at room temperature for at least a day or two, sometimes even 3 days, depending on what you're cooking them with. So I can already smell these scallops. The beautiful thing about scallops is once their liquid starts releasing, you can smell it. It just permeates everything around you. Now, you can kind of see on the side of the scallop, you're going to start to see the gradient of white changing from opaque to more of a set white as it cooks through the scallop. It's a nice way to be able to tell how your scallops are cooking, simply by watching that gradient change as it moves up. Now, we're going to take a quick peek underneath here to see how our scallops are doing. Now, again, I'm using a very small metal spatula just because it allows me to get in everywhere. Whatever you're comfortable with, that's what I would recommend using. So this is the last one here, so we're going to check the last one first. See how we're doing. Okay. Now, just with that small peek there, I know we're ready to flip these. So we're going to start flipping these. So now we've just got that nice golden brown caramelization on the outside of the scallop. Beautiful. So we're just going to flip these guys like this. And now here comes the fun part. So now that those are all flipped, you're going to grab about a tablespoon and a half of salted butter. I'm going to put that right in there. And we're just going to let that melt. And we're going to turn up the heat. And while that's melting, we're going to take our sage and we're just going to drop that in there. And now that sage is going to flavor all of that butter. And that's just going to pick up all of that great herbaceousness and all that beautiful flavor that sage imparts on seafood. So as you can see, we're getting really nice and bubbly down here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt my pan so the butter is in the bottom. I'm going to take a spoon, and we are now just going to use this spoon to cover these scallops with this butter. Now, really all you're doing is pouring hot fat over meat and cooking it. This is a very simple, gentle way. Let me get this guy up at top so we get some more flavor. This is a very simple and gentle way to cook a beautiful piece of seafood like this. So all you're going to do is you're just going to keep going with the spoon, and you're just going to go right over top. And you're just going to let that butter cascade over top of your scallops. And that's just going to cause all that flavor to get released. Put that sage back in there. Move that butter around. Again, down to the bottom. And we're just going to get all of that butter all over those scallops. This is one of my favorite techniques. It is amazing for cooking steak in a pan, specifically filet. That tends to be one of those cuts of meat that ends up overcooking very, very quickly. This is a great way to help control that by getting your really dark sear right off the bat, and then using this method to just kind of finish cooking the top and basting everything. Now we check the scallops. A little bit of sponginess left, which is exactly what you're looking for. Now these are just about done. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to let that butter sit back on them. We're going to turn our heat down just below medium for about 45 seconds. Just going to let these finish, and then we're going to stop the heat and build our salad. So right now, the way that sits, those are done. So that goes off. Those can sit there for a few moments. Because now, we're going to build our salad. So we're going to do this as 2 salads. Now, I have 2 different types of greens here that I've decided to go with. I have a very simple spring mix, very nice and light, lots of larger leafy greens, and I have some really nice spicy arugula. I like the contrast of both of these to give a really good flavor jump on everything. So, before we start spinning that salad, these scallops are beautifully done. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull these guys off here. I'm going to put them right on the plate. 5 beautiful scallops. So, well, there you go. You can see the other side is cooked just as nicely as the top. These guys down here. Okay, so now we're gonna make our salad. So with this mix of greens, what I would do personally is I would do a 2-to-1 mix of the leaf greens to the spicy arugula. Again, if you want a little bit more spice in yours, if you want a little bit more of that crunch and that peppery flavor, boost up that arugula. But we're gonna go a little bit easier on that. So I'm gonna take some of those nice leafy greens. We're going to take a nice handful of that beautiful arugula, which I absolutely adore. I love arugula. It tastes like pepper. It's wonderful. Now, dressing. So because again, it's unstable emulsification, we're just going to give that a really solid shake before we pop this open. We're going to give it a fairly decent coat of dressing. Out of the way. Grab some tongs. Now we are just going to very lightly move the salad around. You don't want to be too aggressive with it because you don't want to bruise your greens. Now we're going to get in here. A nice handful of our greens. Right in the center. Nice and high. Same on this plate here. 1 for me. Oh, that's good. So we've got our greens nice and high. And now because I've decided to make this a summer salad, we have a beautiful selection of fresh berries. Blackberries, raspberries, blueberries, 3 of my personal favorites. I honestly can't get enough blackberries. So we're going to just kind of dress this around really nicely. Put as many or as few berries as you like. These big, beautiful raspberries will sit up just really nicely on top, like so. Some of those guys in there. A couple of blueberries on top there. A couple more there. Now we'll take some of those candied nuts with that great Old Bay spice on them. Just take them in your hand, crunch. Let me just put those right on top. Just like so. So there you have it. A very simple, fresh, light, flavorful summer salad. Herb vinaigrette, which really you can do anything with that basic recipe. What I gave you there is a very base vinaigrette recipe. Go nuts with it. Change your vinegars, change your oils, change your herbs. Dry spices, add some chili, do whatever you kind of want with it. It's a lot of fun to play around with. The scallops, I hope I've opened your eyes to how easy it is to cook them and how much flavor you can put in them and how quick they are and how much of a great alternative they are to different seafoods. And if you want to splurge and treat yourself, it's a great option. Everything here is very simple to make. It's very healthy. It's good for you. And it's great for this type of weather. So I really encourage everybody to give this a try and play around with it. If you happen to come up with something awesome, please throw it at my Twitter account, UncensoredChef with 2 F's at the end. I'd love to see your creations. I'd love to see anybody who tries any of these things at home. Please send me pictures. I'd love to interact with you guys. You know, if this is your first time on the page watching me cook live, please grab that follow button. We'd love to see you come back next Thursday and every Thursday after that. We have a YouTube channel as well where we try to post a couple times a week with a couple of cooking tips, and we usually take this stream and we cut it down a little bit and throw it up there as well. So hopefully you've enjoyed what I've cooked for you guys tonight. Love to see you guys come back. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Scott. I am the Uncensored Chef. This has been Summer Salad with Scallops. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next Thursday.